Good morning. Thank you for attending this session called Effective Public Management Strengthening Digital Transformation in the Caribbean. My name is Mike María. I'm the OIAS officer responsible for the Digital and Open Government section at the Department for Effective Public Management of the OIAS, and I will be your moderator for this session. This session starts with opening remarks, followed by a brief introduction of our topic today, and then we will go straight into the presentation from our panelists. At the end, we will devote some time to the dialogue for what I ask the audience to leave your comments and questions using the Q&A and chat of this platform. And without further ado, I welcome Ambassador Tarlie Francis. He is the chair of the OIAS Permanent Council and the permanent representative of Grenada to the OIAS. Ambassador Francis, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike, and good morning, everyone. Ambassador Lambert, Excellencies, esteemed colleagues, distinguished panelists, and participants from across the Caribbean and beyond. A very good morning to all of you. Happy to see such a wonderful participation level at this early stage. It is an honor for me to welcome you to this important webinar on effective public management, strengthening digital transformation in the Caribbean. It is hosted by the Organization of American States, and I'm deeply grateful to the Department of Effective Public Management for organizing this, what I term a timely and crucial discussion. The COVID-19 pandemic, though a global tragedy, has served as a catalyst for transformation across various sectors, particularly in the public administration. We have witnessed how digital technologies have become indispensable tools for maintaining continuity of services and even of governance. Today, as we gather for this webinar, we can be reminded of the essential role that digital transformation plays, not just in improving public services, but also in enhancing the effectiveness, the transparency, and I dare say the accountability of our institutions and also of our governments. In the Caribbean, though, the journey towards digital transformation is more than just an upgrade of systems. By and large, it is farther than that. It represents a fundamental shift in how we engage with our citizens, how we deliver public services, and how we uphold democratic values. It is a journey towards inclusivity as well, where every citizen, as far as is possible, regardless of location and also regardless of status, can have access to efficient and transparent public services, government services, necessary services. It is a journey towards resilience as well, because we speak about where we want to go, as where our governments and our institutions are better equipped to respond to crises like the catastrophic Hurricane Beryl, for example, or political crises at times of transition, and adapt to change and ensure in any situation there can be continuity. So digital transformation, as I'm sure this distinguished audience you already know, is not an end in itself, but a means to an end. It's a means to achieve, from my seat here, more transparent and accountable and participatory governance in our societies. Models based on technological advances are models that can be more successful. It is about harnessing technology to build trust between governments and citizens as well, to ensure that our actions are visible, that our decisions are just, and that the processes that we use are fair because they are in the open and because the technological and digital transformation allows us to do this seamlessly. This is the essence of democracy in a certain sense, where power is exercised in the open, where every action is subject to scrutiny, and where every voice has a platform. What better way of having every voice on a platform than through digital transformation? The Inter-American Democratic Charter reminds us that transparency responsible public administration, and respect for social rights are essential. They are components of the exercise of democracy, critical ones. Digital transformation provides us with the tools to realize these principles in practical and impactful ways. It enables us to create systems that are open, that are data-driven, and that can be citizen-focused, very important in our line of activity, fostering an environment where accountability is not just a concept, but in everyday exercise, a reality. However, that path to digital transformation is not without challenges, and hence the importance of the webinars that we organize and the one that you're attending today. It requires a concerted effort to build capacity, to invest in infrastructure, and to develop frameworks that ensure data privacy and cybersecurity remains paramount. It requires a commitment to inclusion as well, ensuring that digital advances do not widen the existing inequalities in our societies, but rather that they build the gaps and provide equal opportunity for all. As we go through on this journey together, hopefully we can remember that digital transformation is not a destination, but a continuous process. And the work that you do, we thank you for it. And we look forward to this webinar being one of the instances of such in-depth and profound discussion, exchange of ideas and information on good practices, that it presents itself as a good and excellent contribution to digital transformation in the Caribbean. I'm confident that today's discussion, from the preliminaries I've seen and heard, will provide us with valuable insights and practical tools to advance our digital transformation agendas. Let us embrace this opportunity together, and I look forward to fruitful exchanges. I will remain for the entire session to be able to benefit as well. I bring you warm regards from the Permanent Council of the OAS, and we welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Francis, for these wonderful remarks. To conclude the opening remarks, I welcome Ambassador James Lambert. He is the Secretary for Hemispheric Affairs of the OAS and my boss. We welcome. The floor is yours, Ambassador Lambert.
Thank you very much, Mike, and excuse the siren that's going by in the background. Good morning, Ambassador Francis, Director Trigo, distinguished panelists and participants, numerous participants in this important webinar. On behalf of Secretary General Luis Almagro and the Organization of American States, it's my real pleasure to welcome you to this online forum to discuss the tools and good practices that can contribute to the digital transformation of the Caribbean member states and indeed the wider Americas. And I'm honored to be here to deliver the opening remarks together with the Ambassador of Grenada to the OAS, Mr. Tarlie Francis, who is also the chair of the Permanent Council of the Organization of American States. And Mr. Chair, I thank you not only for accompanying this important dialogue, but for your very stirring opening words, which I think are inspirational to all of us. And I would like to begin by acknowledging the presence of our very distinguished speakers, from whom you're going to be hearing shortly, all our renowned figures driving the digital transformation agenda forward in their respective jurisdictions. So in that respect, I would like to thank Senator and Minister Dana Morrison-Dixon from the Office of the Prime Minister's Skills and Digital Transformation of Jamaica. We are honored that you're with us today. Also, Denyse White, Deputy National Chief Digital Officer of the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Trinidad and Tobago. Both authorities will help us to understand the state of digital transformation in the Caribbean in light of their respective experiences. And we're also pleased to be joined in this webinar by leading countries on digital transformation on the world stage: Canada, Estonia, the United Kingdom. And I'd like to thank in that regard Ms. Christine Bellamy with the Government of the United Kingdom. She is the CEO of the UK Government Digital Service. Also Mr. Sim Sikut, the former Government Chief Information Officer of Estonia and author of multiple volumes and a renowned expert in the field. And finally, Ms. Ambereen Jamal Rahim with the Canadian government. She is the Director of Data Policy and Outreach of the CIO Office of the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat. And as a former Canadian public servant myself, I know about the leading practices that the Treasury Board has put in place across the government of Canada. So I welcome you all to this. We couldn't have a better set of guest speakers for this dialogue. And I'd like to thank you all for contributing to the shaping of the landscape of digital transformation in the hemisphere and being here today to talk about your experiences with us. Before we continue with the dialogue, I want to speak briefly about why it's extremely important and crucial for us at the OAS to facilitate these types of dialogues on digital transformation. So this dialogue is inspired in part by the commitments and mandates which have been set forth by OAS member states at the time of the Summits of the Americas and the OAS General Assemblies in their turn. And in saying this, I would highlight two particular aspects. First, that the heads of government and heads of state and government and the ministries of foreign affairs are actively engaged in these high-level hemispheric political forums, accelerating negotiations and agreement to bring to the region a new era of democratic stability and prosperity by taking precisely full advantage of digital government. Second of all, these high-level advanced commitments and agreements on digital transformation, which didn't exist 5 years ago, are paving the road for OAS member states to obtain greater government efficiency and transparency, as well as better and more agile public service delivery to citizens, and also opens the possibility for the exchange of experiences between them so that we may mutually benefit from the experiences as we go through this journey. I'd like to refer to a few of the instruments that I think are particularly critical. In 2018, at the time of the 8th Summit of the Americas, the heads of state and government agreed to the very first open data commitment of the region at this level. And the commitment called upon the OAS Department of Effective Public Management under the leadership of Director Trigo to work towards the development of an inter-American open data program to prevent and combat corruption, which does so by identifying 30 data sets that should be open and available to other public institutions and to citizens themselves. And this program was later approved at the OAS General Assembly in 2019 and is being implemented successfully in many member states. The program aims to strengthen open data and public information policies and to increase the capacity of governments and citizens to prevent and combat corruption through the utilization of open data. Second of all, at the Summit of the Americas in 2022 in Los Angeles, there was an agreement of a regional agenda for digital transformation, becoming the very first agreement of its kind for the region. And in it, the heads of state and government vowed to accelerate digital government transformation and support the simplification of administrative procedures and the modernization of public services, amongst other key issues. And third, and most recently, was the agreement from the 54th OAS General Assembly this past June, held in Paraguay, where there was agreement in the Strengthening Democracy Resolution, comprising a set of 8 mandates under the section on digital and open government, including the request to the General Secretariat through the Department for Effective Public Management to work on the development of the guidelines for the Inter-American Framework for Data Governance and Artificial Intelligence. So this is really only a fraction of the commitments and mandates that we support at the OAS, and the reason why we seek to elevate the dialogue and raise awareness about government digital transformation in the region while reflecting on best practices in those countries which should be embraced. So I ask you, and I don't doubt that we will receive your continuing support and best inputs for the advancement of this agenda at the OAS and in the region, but not without pausing to wish you a very successful exchange today to thank you again for your participation and your commitment to this very important process. And in closing, I would, of course, like to thank my colleagues of the Department of Effective Public Management for organizing this session, for their zeal in advancing this agenda and contributing throughout the years to strengthening digital and open government in the hemisphere. So thank you all and have a very good and enjoyable session.
Thank you, Ambassador Lambert, for your opening remarks that complement very well remarks by Ambassador Francis of Grenada. With that, we start this session, and I want to actually welcome or to introduce this session, Ms. María Fernanda Trigo. She is the Director of the Department for Effective Public Management of the OAS, my direct boss, and I should say a woman and a leader that for over 20 years has fought to contribute to improve public institutions in the Americas so they're more effective and transparent. María Fernanda, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you for your words. Good morning, Ambassador Francis. It's really an honor to have you in this session. Also, good morning to all the permanent representatives that are with us today, the members of the permanent missions, our dear speakers. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and being with us today and giving us your time. And also thank you very much, Ambassador Lambert, for your participation and for allowing us to do all the work that we do and always supporting us in all we do here in promoting digital transformation. This session is particularly important for us because it is directed to the Caribbean region. And we know there's a lot to do there, and we would really like to be more involved and support Caribbean countries in this journey. The Department for Effective Public Management's mission is to support member states so their public institutions are more transparent, effective, and have mechanisms for citizen participation. Those are our three pillars. We consider these principles to be key for an effective public administration, particularly in these times when we must strengthen accountability towards citizens. We have been serving OAS member states for the past 20 years as the technical secretariat along the IDB of the Inter-American Network of Digital Government, which includes national digital government authorities from OAS member states who meet annually to discuss and exchange best practices in areas such as public software, emerging technologies, digital signature, open data, data governance, cybersecurity in coordination with the Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism, and interoperability. After all these years working hand by hand with e-government leaders, we know that digital transformation is a key driver for economic development in Caribbean countries, offering tools and strategies to enhance efficiency and productivity, foster innovation, and build resilience, ultimately leading to sustainable growth and improving living standards. Digital transformation also helps to improve governance, as mentioned by Ambassador Francis, and public service delivery, as set forth on Article 4 of the Inter-American Democratic Charter, by enhancing government transparency, efficiency, and making public services more accessible. This can lead to improved citizen engagement and trust in public institutions, which is much needed in our region today. But one thing should always be very clear. Technology is not an end per se. It is just a tool to facilitate the implementation of these principles. The most important component is always political will. We also know that the state of digital transformation varies significantly across the Caribbean region, influenced by factors such as infrastructure, government policies, and economic conditions. Some governments in the Caribbean have recognized the importance of digital transformation and are implementing policies to promote it. For example, the establishment of a new ministry on the subject as it is the case of the Digital Transformation Ministry in Trinidad and Tobago. Initiatives include the creation of national digital strategies, investments in e-government services, and support for technology-led economic diversification. Countries like Barbados and Jamaica have made notable advances in these areas. Several Caribbean countries are adopting e-government solutions to improve public service delivery. Online platforms for services such as business registration, tax payments, and license applications are being developed to enhance efficiency and accessibility. Also, the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the adoption of e-commerce across the Caribbean. Businesses, particularly retailers and service providers, increasingly turn to online platforms to reach customers. However, there's still a need for better payment solutions, logistics, and digital marketing skills to fully capitalize on this growth. The private sector also is playing an increasingly vital role in driving digital transformation. Many businesses are investing in technology to improve operations and customer engagement, and local tech startups are emerging, focusing on solutions tailored to regional challenges. Some Caribbean nations are embracing innovative solutions, such as mobile technology for financial services, which are particularly important in a region where traditional banking may be less accessible. However, we know that digital transformation in the public sector faces several challenges, such as limited broadband connectivity, especially in rural areas, which hampers access to digital services and technologies. Despite efforts to improve telecom infrastructure, challenges remain regarding affordability and reliability. There's also often a skills gap within the public sector workforce when it comes to digital literacy and the use of technology. Many public servants may lack the necessary training to effectively adopt and utilize new digital tools and platforms. Also, resistance to change can pose a significant barrier. And as Ambassador Francis mentioned, there is a cultural adaptation. Employees may be hesitant sometimes to adopt new technologies and processes due to the fear to the unknown, concerns about job security, or a lack of understanding on the benefits of digital transformation. The approach to digital transformation is often fragmented across various government agencies and departments. Lack of coordination and a unified strategy can lead to inefficiencies, duplicated efforts, and challenges in interoperability and data sharing among agencies and public service delivery, undermining the potential benefits of a digitalized public sector. The same for outdated laws and regulations, which may not adequately address the challenges posed by digital technologies. In summary, while there are significant advancements in digital transformation across the region, challenges such as the ones described above and varying degrees of government commitment and investment remain. Nonetheless, the trajectory is positive, with increasing recognition of the need to embrace digital technologies for economic growth and sustainable development. Overcoming these challenges requires a coordinated effort among government officials, stakeholders, and the private sector to create an ecosystem that fosters innovation, improves digital literacy, and ensures the security and effectiveness of digital service in the public sector. For a successful digital transformation, strong leadership and commitment from government officials are essential. Without a clear vision and support at the highest level, digital initiatives may falter or fail to gain the necessary momentum. We see that the region is taking steps in the right direction. As Secretary Lambert mentioned, OEA's member states have laid out in recent years the foundation of a regional digital transformation ecosystem with commitments, mandates, and agreements to guide the road ahead. As such, the Department for Effective Public Management is currently working with governments, civil society, and the private sector in developing the Inter-American Framework on Data Governance and Artificial Intelligence, which includes a set of guidelines commonly agreed that can be a resource that member states can use to develop their own national data governance and artificial intelligence strategies. We hope that this seminar contributes to strengthen digital transformation in the Caribbean by raising awareness about the challenges and opportunities ahead, and also by providing opportunities to learn more about good practices and experiences of other countries in the region and the world. Thank you very much, and I also wish a very fruitful session. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Fernanda, for this introduction, which I think it sets the floor for our discussion, and we're looking very much forward to that. Before we continue, I also want to mention quickly that this event is implemented also in the framework of the Inter-American Network on Digital Government, REDGEALC, for which the Department for Effective Public Management is its technical secretariat, in coordination with the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank. In the framework of this network, we're having the 8th Digital Government Ministerial Meeting this November in Brazil, which also, in fact, is part of the mandates mentioned by Ambassador Lambert earlier. And in that regard, we look forward to continue this conversation to strengthen the transformation at the margins of that digital government ministerial meeting. We're going to move to the core of this session now, the presentations of our panelists. And for that, I welcome first Ms. Denyse White. She is the Deputy National Chief Digital Officer of the Ministry of Digital Transformation in Trinidad and Tobago. And yes, there is a Ministry of Digital Transformation in Trinidad and Tobago. So we welcome you, Ms. Denyse, the floor is yours. We see your presentation, but we don't hear you yet.
Are you hearing me now?
Now, perfect.
Okay, great. All right, so good morning, everyone. Good morning to the ambassadors. Good morning to my fellow panelists. And good morning, most importantly, to our participants in this webinar. It's really good to be able to share some of the experiences that we have in Trinidad and Tobago as regards our digital transformation journey. We do have a dedicated Ministry of Digital Transformation, and that really does highlight the government's emphasis on digital transformation as one of the foundational elements of our national development journey. So I'm just going to walk you through a couple of slides this morning that will talk about some of the progress we've made in the digital transformation journey so far, some of the challenges we have encountered, and some of the future prospects or the challenges that also lie ahead. So let's start off by looking at our digital transformation timeline. We were one of the first in the Caribbean to have a national ICT strategy in 2003. And all these years later, what we've seen is a progression from where we started off with access and moving to getting greater utilization to now looking at technology as finding a way to have a better quality of life. So our digital transformation strategy is really built on 3 foundational pillars: the digital society, digital economy, and digital government. For the digital society, our focus is on increasing meaningful connectivity. For digital government, it's about enhancing productive output. And for digital government, we are talking about delivering public value by improving service delivery. Above all, our strategy is citizen-centric, which is why our ministry advocates that it is made by us, for us, and even extending to our participation in the global economy. In terms of the progress made, what I really want to bring across is that this digital transformation is not a linear thing. So it is very dynamic, It's an iterative process, and progress in one area really influences and accelerates progress in others. So we see these three pillars, even though they are three pillars, they are very much intertwined, right? And what we need to understand is that flexibility and adaptability are very much key as we navigate this particular landscape. So in terms of digital society, we have made good strides in expanding our broadband access, especially in underserved areas. We have very well subscribed digital literacy programs. We actually have a program called We Learn TT. And we have empowered many more citizens to participate in this digital world, bridging the gap between the connected and the unconnected. We also have a growing network of ICT access centers, which acknowledges that access is not always what is needed to take persons into that realm of meaningful connectivity. People can come into the centers, get access, but they also get the opportunity to skill up. So not only do they have the access, they now have the ability to be able to really participate in the global economy. And what we see is that these efforts have really increased our social engagement and connectivity, which are critical for being more inclusive in this digital society. In the digital economy, what we've also seen, and this is coming off of COVID, there has been a marked increase in e-commerce and digital entrepreneurship. Small businesses are really trying to leverage digital tools, and we've actually started a program called the Developers Hub, where we bring in small developers and make them a part of an ecosystem where they have a platform to develop, they have skills, they have opportunities to access open data sets, and they are now mapped to challenges that exist in the digital government space to be able to find solutions, innovative solutions, right? We have over 1,000 small developers registered on this platform, and we just finished a very successful first round of the Developers Hub Challenge. So what we're trying to do is develop tech as a sector, but also as an enabler for businesses to increase their productive output. In terms of digital government, we've seen an enhancement of service delivery, and this is by rolling out more online services and improving e-government platforms. So we're trying to get to the space where citizens can now access essential services more easily and efficiently than ever before. The government is setting up its own data center, as well as implementing an interoperability platform and a soon-to-be deployed digital identity. So all these are key components of the digital public infrastructure. And what we're seeing is that all of this is done with a citizen-centric lens. So we're trying to engage citizens more actively and ensure that government services are not only accessible, but user-friendly. We talk about inclusive by design, we talk about resilient by design. But with all of this progress, we know that there are some challenges, all right? And digital transformation, I liken it to dance in the cha-cha. So we make a couple steps forward, we make a couple steps back. And it's easy to be daunted with some of the challenges, but it's important to also understand that the lessons learned along the journey are as important as getting to the destination itself. So what we have, oops, too quickly. So we still have a bit of a digital divide, right? We want to make sure that all marginalized and vulnerable groups, we're talking about persons living with disabilities, we're talking about persons of a lower socioeconomic circumstance, persons living in remote communities, all right? So all of these persons should not be left behind in the digital revolution. We want to make sure that the infrastructure gaps, because there are still areas of the country, remote areas where connectivity remains a challenge. So it's about exploring new solutions. We're actually looking at some new satellite technology, the LEOs, to bring that connectivity out to those areas where it may not have been feasible for the established providers to provide the connectivity beforehand, but doing them in a targeted way so that it remains adaptable to the needs of those specific communities. We also have the issue of cybersecurity threats. So you would know that as our digital footprint increases, what we see is that the risks increase as well. And cybersecurity threats are becoming increasingly sophisticated. So we do have to strengthen our defenses. We are doing a cross-collaborative effort with government and the private sector, and enlisting some help from our international agencies to help us modernize our cybersecurity strategy and strengthen our cybersecurity incident response team. We also have the issue of resistance to change. So we're talking about adopting new technologies, and there's some cultural resistance. I saw lately in the news that persons were saying a cashless society is not where we want to go. And, you know, those things are troubling to hear, because the implication is that there's a privacy issue, but there's also a security issue, because when you have large amounts of cash, you make targets and issues of security, ones that should not be existent in our time and space today. So we do need to overcome a lot of cultural and organizational resistance to adopting new technologies, understanding that as all tools, they have to be reused responsibly, and to ensure that nobody is disadvantaged, right, from having access to the tools that will help them participate in a global society. And we also know that measuring impact is a significant challenge for us. It's not always straightforward or easily comparable across the different sectors or regions. And the benefits of digital initiatives can be hard to quantify, especially when they involve intangible outcomes like improved public satisfaction or increased digital literacy. We also have challenges with our institutional frameworks. So we want to ensure that policies, regulations, governance structures effectively support digital transformation, and we acknowledge that they do require ongoing adjustments. So we have to establish this robust enabling environment, and making sure that when we align these institutions, they should be agile and they should be responsive in a fast-changing digital landscape. So in terms of the challenges ahead and our future prospects, one thing, of course, is adapting to the emerging technologies. So we have things like AI, blockchain, the Internet of Things, and we understand that these technologies have immense potential, but integrating them into our existing systems without carefully understanding what the impact of those technologies could mean requires more careful planning and execution. We also know that the policy and regulatory frameworks have to be adapted and modernized, and they tend to lag behind the pace of technology. So how do we create future-ready policy and regulatory frameworks that will protect our citizen rights and also ensure fair competition? In terms of increasing our participation in the global economy, we want to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago remains competitive. And this is not just keeping up with the global trends, but leading in particular areas of digital innovation. And it is critical above all that we try to sustain the momentum. So we have to scale up where possible the successful initiatives and continuously innovate to stay ahead of the curve. So in conclusion, digital transformation involves more than just technology. It's about creating opportunities, fostering innovation, and improving the quality of life for all citizens. And that is what we hope to do in our ongoing journey of digital transformation in Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. White, for this presentation. I think it will help us greatly to position digital transformation in the Caribbean, to picture digital transformation in the Caribbean. I'm sure there's a lot to talk in each specific of this session, but We're going to go over this most likely in the Q&A also, but I want to move on because we want to get to the discussion. And for that, I just first want to mention that we are having troubles connecting with our speaker, Senator and Minister Diana Morris Dixon from the Office of the Prime Minister of the Jamaica. So we're hoping that in the process of having the next presentation, she'll join in. We're pursuing that, but we're gonna continue moving on. And for that, I wanted to give the floor right now, or actually introduce somebody who has been already introduced, but start with Ms. Christine Bellamy, the CEO of the government of the UK Government Digital Service of the Government of the UK. And in doing so, actually, for this session, I want to let attendees know, for this session, we have actually prepared some questions for the guest speakers who will be responding to specific areas that we think will be of value for digital transformation and strengthening digital transformation in the Caribbean. So thank you, Ms. Bellamy, for being with us today, definitely so, in a different time zone. But here you go. This is the first question that we have prepared for you, and we're looking for your input on this. So what are the main characteristics of the UK Digital Government Service that had positioned the country at the top of digital government worldwide, and how the UK actually was able to accomplish it? We can talk hours about it, but time is limited. So I'll give you the floor and you'll have some minutes to respond to these questions. And welcome again. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great to see you on. Thank you so much for being here. Do you know, this isn't rocket science. And what's lovely listening already to guest speakers is you're doing much of what we're doing in the UK. I think I just sort of hone in on a few key things. So what happened about 10 years ago in the UK, there was a clear mandate set from the top of government around the importance of digital transformation. And over the 10 years that have followed, we have renewed that frequently to ensure that we are always driving right outcomes. And the clear vision for us was to transform the user experience. We've done some great work in that space, was to rebuild trust and to make sure that we left no community behind. So this clear principle of that we needed to have a digital government for everybody. Importantly, this clear agenda, what does that really mean in practice? So apart from a clear mandate, we publish our mandate. We publish it on our product called gov.uk, and we tell our citizens and we tell the rest of government that this is what we do and this is what we're here for. And we renew that every single year. It sort of holds us accountable. And we set out clear ways of transforming the business, which wasn't just about the user experience, but it was also about how we deal with spending controls, how we start to really drive digital adoption, how we start to talk about benefits. Can we really justify that we've made real benefits to users, but also to government? And we have very strong governance processes. So setting that sort of landscape out means we're able to always be accountable. But if that was the way we sort of went about it, that was the how. I think the one thing we did right from the off, and we continue to do in the UK, is think about our products that we put in front of our users. We don't run programs anymore. We're not waterfall. We operate by having a proper product mindset. We'd like to think we're as good as anybody like Amazon or whoever who's thinking about products in that way, that are user-centric. But it's more important we get it right, because we're not selling anything. We're there to change people's lives. And so over the past years and in our current vision plans, it's all about the products that we build, own and operate and serve for our users, such as gov.uk, the design system that everybody can use on gov.uk, and we open source that nations can use and people on this call are using. And we're taking that through to our next iteration of products, such as One Login, the way we're doing things like wallets, etc. But we build once, we use many, and that close centre, which is building once and anybody can use it, means there's a real way to sort of drive adoption through government. So our key areas would be really strong vision, a mandate that we constantly renew. We actually then build products that we invest in for the long term. So we're always making sure they get better. And what we've got from speakers on this call already is, I think if you came to find GDS a few years ago, you may have thought we got a little bit complacent. But in the last few years, what we've done is we work really closely with countries such as Estonia who are on the call, and we've learned from others. And in doing so, that next bit of our transformation has been about what we've done in collaboration with other communities in other countries. So there are four principles. And I think that's why you find us still able to transform government, but still so much more to do.
No doubt. Thank you, Christine, for your response. Actually, your presentation reiterates something that was addressed, and the importance of the strong vision, right? The mandates. I think Denyse White also mentioned it. That's what there's a ministry. María Fernanda also had it on her remarks. I think we're finding a line here in those areas of commonalities here, but obviously a lot of things to dive in. We have a second question for you, and I think with these questions we can go go deeper in one of the aspects, and that is how did the government of the UK involve citizens so they participate and take advantage of digital public service delivery, right? It's not only one-way highway. How the UK has accomplished it.
Yeah, I think that's the key question probably for the approach that the UK's taken. So I joined a couple of years ago, worked for the BBC for about 10 years and came into work in government because they had already thought about the user experience. So how do we do that? We don't ship anything without users being involved, like anything. We don't put anything out. Even through COVID, we did not launch any products or services that did not have users involved in the build and feedback in those operations. So everything we do is user-centric. We have in every walk of life, in every week in our cycles, we have users using our products or talking to us about what we need to do next or telling us we're not good enough. Or we've got thousands of people now. We were looking at the new gov.uk app that are telling us every single hour that what we need to do next. So fundamentally, all of the UK products are built in collaboration with citizens. And once you get that momentum, it actually really drives great outcomes. So you've got initial cost of thinking about things differently. You might think that might slow you down, but it does mean you make the right services and the right products. We work really closely with policymakers. So we've tried to make the gap between policy and digital delivery really small. So we don't have an option where you make a policy and then actually you ship it over the fence and the digital folk pick it up. Our digital folk work in collaboration right at the conception of that policy making, and that's a game changer, because the minute you do that, the policy starts to work for the user. If the policy works for the user, the citizen, we can build digital products that can enhance that. So everything we do is built with citizens, and it's almost a mandate. And my teams would go mental, to use a very Northern English phrase, if I changed that as a concept, because that's why they work in GDS. So it comes from the heart of that answer, actually, because it's sort of the way the whole of the mechanic of the organisation that I run works.
That is great. That is great. Thank you. And I think it's very valuable for effective public management, of course, in general, right? In integrating this concept of working with the user, with the citizen throughout the policy cycle, right? The public policy cycle. I think that's key and very important.
And just to follow, just a very quick thing for people on the call. If people wanted to learn more than that, we do publish lots of that on gov.uk and how we do it. But I'd be really happy for anybody to get in touch with us, and we can go in detail about how we approach it.
Thank you. We're going to take advantage of that, Ms. Melami, for sure. Definitely so. I mentioned that we're having our digital government ministerial meeting this year, and there's a lot to share there as well. So we will take advantage of that. I want to close. I want to thank you for these two answers. We're going to have dialogue later on, but I want to mention that the UK, the United Kingdom, it's a permanent observer of the OAS, and we value very much the contribution of the UK to the OAS, and certainly also your participation as institution here. Thank you. We want to move on and continue. And now we're going to move from a permanent observer to the OAS to another member state of the OAS. We're going to go to Canada right now at this very moment. And for that, I want to welcome Ambreen Jamal Rahim. She is the Director of Data Policy and Outreach of the CIO Office of Canada with the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat, a partner of us, a member of the network as well, and also OAS member state, as I mentioned. We have two questions. We have prepared two questions for you, Ambreen, and we're very glad to have the CIO office represented here. So the first one is, what makes digital government in Canada effective, and how long has digital transformation been a factor to accomplish it there in Canada? Welcome, Ambreen.
Thank you so much, and absolutely. And I am really enjoying the conversation so far. It's so wonderful to hear from other countries. So absolutely, I wonder if Mike, you'd be able to share the screen. I do have some visuals that would go well with the discussion. Also, lots of links and resources I'll be sharing throughout as I answer your questions. But first off, as Ms. White pointed out, I absolutely agree. Achieving the potential of a digital government does require more than just technology. In fact, it requires a holistic approach that's enabled by technology, but driven by people, collaboration, and data. So as you can see, as you can likely see from the screen, many of you may be familiar with Canada's characteristics. So this is a bit of just a fun slide to give an overview. Certain factors that are listed here may be challenging, but also a source of our greatest strength in making digital government a reality. Canada has 3 levels of government serving a geographically dispersed population that roughly equals the population of all Caribbean islands combined, or closer to North America, the population of California. That's why collaboration is key. It's about weaving together the various threads to be stronger together so that we can deliver services for everyone, both public servants and for those that they serve, no matter where they reside across Canada's 6 time zones, whether it's the Canadian Coast Guard, maritime search and rescue, providing unemployment insurance, reuniting family members from abroad, or supporting farmers through a drought. That is a key factor, I would say, as well, for the Caribbean states to consider on how best to leverage each other's data, infrastructure, and services. And just to hone in a bit more on, explain a bit more about the network of collaboration we have within the Government of Canada. Last year, Canada recently appointed a Minister of Citizen Services to champion service delivery excellence, identify high impact service improvements, and drive the digitalization of government services. We also have a federal Chief Information Officer, currently Dominique Rochon, and we appointed also recently, a few years ago actually, the first ever federal chief data officer, that is Stephen Burt, and many departments have also internally appointed CDOs or chief data officers as a result. So what allows the Government of Canada to be effective in it is also its collection of strategies and policies, which are shown on screen, that support an enterprise approach with an integrated focus on digital transformation. So this means effective data management, treating data as a strategic asset that's essential for ensuring high quality services. As someone mentioned earlier in one of the opening remarks as well, recruiting, developing, and retaining top talent, allowing for expanded capabilities, and that includes increasing the level of digital competency as well as data competency amongst the public service, enabling managers to develop new leadership skills for the digital era. The Government of Canada is focused on building a true digital mindset through that stronger bridge between people, data, technology, and policy as well has a big role to play in that. So when I look at the what's on screen, we have overarching the Government of Canada Chief Information Officer's digital ambition that is publicly available, and that sets the strategic direction. Underpinning that is the policy on service and digital, as well as the Government of Canada's digital standards, which are in fact modeled by the UK's digital standards. And they are ones that are being refreshed. Currently, the one that's recently been refreshed is the design with users. Another one is building in accessibility from the start. These are all things that Canada is continually looking at to improve, first of all, to have actionable policies, and also to improve the guidance for government servants that deliver these services. So this approach ensures that digital initiatives move forward effectively and efficiently and adapt to emerging challenges such as cybersecurity incidents, the emergence of artificial intelligence, making the transformation sustainable and resilient. When we look at digital infrastructure as well, we do have a service and digital target state enterprise architecture model that is also provided as one of the resources listed in this deck that promotes the alignment of IT with business services, facilitating the use of reusable components and shared application programming interfaces or APIs to break down silos and improve efficiency. So by aligning these IT investments with the priorities, cross-cutting, and the themes of the digital ambition, Canada ensures cost efficiency and consistency, which is key across our 130 plus federal departments, prioritizing resources in areas that deliver the greatest value and address key challenges. So this approach supports managing risks associated with older legacy systems while enhancing government operations, security, and efficiency. Would like to emphasize as well the continuous improvement in using quality data and client insights, similar to what my esteemed colleague at the UK was talking about, to enhance services, build public trust. That was one of the, I think, factors that is part of that was mentioned also in the early remarks. Having systematic reviews, user testing, feedback loops to help identify and close gaps in service delivery that ensures alignment with the digital standards and meeting the evolving needs of the Canadian population. I could go on and on. There's several, examples of things that Canada has been working on since the pandemic and throughout the pandemic. One is, well, the Canadian Digital Service that was established several years ago now, and they've created tools where that really tries to streamline and give consistency across services to help improve the efficiency of services, leveraging data between departments as well. So I'll stop there for now, but as you can see, I do just want to point out though at the bottom here, we do have the data strategy for the federal public service, but I won't get into that just yet, just to give an overview of how we approach digital transformation.
Thank you very much, Amberine. And I just want to highlight two new things that being on the discussion, but that you were very clear about breaking down silos, very important and for efficiency. I think that's and the other part of it is human talent, developing human talent that actually can take on this. I mean, I'm just adding on to the pile of very good input that we're receiving here. So the second question for you, if I may, very quick. This is and you mentioned this, but let's see how we dive into it. Data is central to Canada's digital transformation strategy. You did mention that data sharing tools and managing data to better serve Canada, to better serve Canadian citizens are some of the relevant approaches of Canada. What could countries in the Caribbean learn from the development of Canada data governance framework?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the ultimate goal, really, as I mentioned, is to drive better services to Canadians. So in support of that, Canada did release the data strategy for the federal public service, organized into 4 mission areas, looking for the highest impact. And one is considering data by design in all stages of government initiatives, effectively stewarding the data for decision making. So roles and responsibilities is very important here. To to enable data-driven services, and we need to ensure that data flows securely where it is needed. And that goes back to some of the data sharing, data sharing agreements or data sharing hubs that also another speaker had mentioned. And finally, as you mentioned too, again, with the talent, empowering the public service with the talent and the tools that they need to succeed. So I would say that, some of the ways that we achieve this is by developing a holistic approach to data governance that will guide decisions, policies, and actions on horizontal data and information issues. We are also defining, as I mentioned, roles and responsibilities for data stewardship as part of a formalized governance structure for enterprise data. We're implementing standards, so policy instruments related to data accessibility, quality, and interoperability between data sets, between systems, while ensuring appropriate privacy and protection of personal information. Now, one of the key points too, I think, has come up a few times is transparency and building trust. So the Government of Canada does have an open government portal with multitude of data sets in support of that goal. So it's about increasing, improving the quality of the data and keeping it up to date and ensuring that people are aware of its use. Now, ensuring that all the while as we're doing this, that we are upholding the ethical and inclusive democratic principles that our country is built on. Now, as an enterprise, managing data and information across the federal government, it is important for public service productivity innovation. Now, and the how is through enterprise data governance. We now have a governance path within the federal government for work that is done by various working level groups, which include a community of practice, which is like a grassroots community of technical experts, and other interdepartmental and jurisdictional working groups, so federal, provincial, municipal as well. These groups engage on data issues and explore solutions before sending them up to higher level committees that would do the recommendation, do the endorsement, and those are, at the Director General level, at the Assistant Deputy Minister level. So we do have a governance path in place. A part of our data governance framework as well, though, includes the fact that we do have data standards, and those are really policy instruments that are implementable, actionable by government departments and programs. The mission, it adheres to the mission of the data strategy around standardization, interoperability, and data sharing. Overall, these instruments outline the key considerations when planning, designing, and delivering services, and they are meant to be used, when designing a new system to create reliable, high-quality data. So together, this establishes clear expectations and common practices to enable interoperability between systems for enhanced collaboration and seamless data exchange, which will lead to improved service delivery, informed decision-making at the highest levels. And I'll end off just by mentioning too, in the slide presentation that will be available in both of Canada's official languages. We will share that with you for any of your French member states as well. We do have, an annual Government of Canada data conference that is hosted. My understanding is it is available for international attendees as well. It's a virtual conference that people can attend. We have a public service data challenge, an annual data challenge. A link is provided. And just a lot of various activities that we do throughout the year to really enhance and build upon the data governance, the basics of the data governance, and increase participation.
Thank you, Amber, for responding to that question and dive specifically on issues of data. Definitely improving quality of data, key, very important. Thank you for all the input there. I want to mention before we move on to attendees, you're going to have access to all these presentations and the links that Amber mentioned as well. We're going to share that with you. Our registered participants will receive it together with the final report of this session. So all other presentations will be available to you. And in saying that, and before we move to the next presentation to hear from Estonia, I want to again ask the attendees to post your questions using the chat. The Q&A tool, or the chat, if you may, of this session, so that our speakers can respond to it. And I'm saying that with emphasizing that we're running low on time. And so let's use the chat and the Q&A tool to exchange and see how much time we have at the end for discussion. But I'm going to move on, and I want to introduce the next participant. He is Sim Sikut. He is the former government chief information officer of Estonia. He is with Digital Nations now. He's an author, as he was saying before. And I want to issue a disclaimer. Unfortunately, Sim cannot be with us live. We posed 2 questions for him. He had an emergency earlier this morning, but was able to send his responses. So we're going to hear from him directly. It's not live, but he's got a delay of a few hours before we join this session. So we're going to hear from him now. And of course, any questions that you have for him, we'll be able to translate and continue building on this. And for that, I'm going to just send the video now. But before, first question for Sim. Very important, right? Estonia is not only one of the most digital nations, but also a top worldwide reference when it comes to digital government transformation. Interoperability, digital security, authentication, and digital ID are some of the highlights of Estonia, and they're well known. But how a fairly young country with a population smaller than Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago, and in the Caribbean, was able to move from analog to digital so well, and what has been the strategy behind, right? Also, a very intense question, and we have only a few minutes. We're going to hear from him directly, and let's see what he has to say about this question.
Good morning. I'm glad to join you from afar. Sorry to be a bit remote for this session because of some unforeseen events, but very glad to share a bit of Estonian journey and story with you. My own background emulates from Estonian government. I spent more than 10 years in leading the digital efforts in the Republic of Estonia. These days, I work as managing partner in Digital Nation. We now work with governments around the world, really helping them to be future ready with their digital governments. And it's heartwarming, this session, actually, because, we've had Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica speak right before us. Both of us, we've been happily engaged as Digital Nation already. So we're exactly happy to spread what we know to Caribbean region as well. Talking about Estonia, so in many ways, it's so easy, too easy to sum up 25 years of work in like 3 minutes or 5 minutes. But if we really go to the heart of the question here, and the heart of how could tiny Estonia pull this thing off, there's a few things that I will emphasize. First, a clear vision and strategy. So we were always very clear, why are we doing this? And we're clear that it's a burning platform for us. Estonia being a smaller disease, 1.3 million people. If you want to be anything in the world, basically you have to punch beyond your weight. So becoming very effective as a government, as is the theme of this event here, and that was the way to go. And digital was the way to achieve that. So everywhere we started looking for effectiveness, productivity, efficiency through digital means, in service delivery, in policy making, and so forth. So the clarity and the focus really made the efforts more impactful, I would say. Secondly, we had to get smart about how we go about digitization. So that's what really led us famously to, single digital entity for the country for authentication, digital signatures for the country, X-Road, the common platform for data exchange. So the building blocks, or as you would call, like digital public infrastructure, that's the term these days, these became a pillar, a platform approach became a pillar to achieving digital progress faster, more secure, and across the whole government, really. So why it matters, especially in small governments like we have here, is that you have only so much time, money, and really talented people to pull up important developments. So the more you can build as shared solutions, the more you can piggyback and reuse stuff, the faster you can go. It's as simple as logic as that. Thirdly, sorry, we were always very conscious that we are not just doing digital or tech stuff, we are actually transforming government. We're transforming services, service processes, we're building new types of government procedures. So, and that's where the impact has come from, not by putting something online or putting something in cloud, but really reinventing, making the processes more seamless, more efficient, more reusing data in once-only mode with the help of digital tools. So digitalization has not been the aim, but really reform has been the aim. And digital, of course, has enabled this, but this transformation has brought the impact. And that means clearly that the key is not somehow in doing technology well. The key has been doing change management well, and I will come back to that perhaps. The fourth thing I would emphasize is that obviously we've been conscious about risks. Privacy risks, cybersecurity risks. I mean, we always saw that, and still the Estonian government sees as the other side of the coin, something you have to do well in order to be digital. So that's why building up cybersecurity expertise and excellence, and has been a big part of Estonian journey. So that's why Estonian government and OAS are greatly partnered in this field for cybersecurity know-how spreading, for example. But my point is here that risks are there. You gotta know them, you gotta manage them, but they should not keep you from doing digital. And that's been like a key part about why Estonia has gone forward and forward with digital things, is because the risks have been always managed in the background. And mind you, we're not talking theory here. Estonia has been through cyber war, there's tail attacks happening, etc. None of these have taken the government down, which is fully reliant on digital these days. And perhaps the last thing, or one of the last things I would mention is a lot of digital transformation, a lot of change is real experimentation. You don't know the outcome. That's in a nutshell what innovation is about, right? So we have been lucky with leadership. We've been conscious with an approach that we have to experiment. We have to take a few risks. We have to try things out. Things like X-Road, things like online voting, things like e-residency these days, where everybody in the world can virtually become Estonian and set up companies in Estonia, for example, from being in a beach in Caribbean. These things were all started with like an experiment how to make them work. The focus was on to try things out, try how to make this happen, as opposed to theorizing about risks or why we shouldn't do stuff. Let's try stuff has been the approach. And this experimentation also has led us to constantly taking up new technologies like artificial intelligence recently. So experimental mindset, method of work, as well as sort of culture, that has been a key part of the journey. And very lastly, to finish up, in Estonia, we've been, I guess, shameless in copying what works and giving credit also to other folks like that. Like our digital identity is not born in Estonia. The concept was from Finland and before that even Sweden. We've been sharing our solutions and our experience so kindly for that matter as well, that we know what it takes, how valuable it is to learn stuff. The smaller the country, the more value there is perhaps in reusing what exists everywhere. That's why we've been strong supporters of the DPI approach and GovStack, for example, etc. But I also want to say that this also means that, if the smaller government you are, just reuse what exists somewhere, what is proven to work somewhere. Or join forces, piggyback on each other's efforts, share talent, share pool finances together to build something as a common solution, because that's the surest way to go forward. And in Estonia, for example, that has meant that we've been doing things with our Nordic neighbors quite a bit. So collaboration, reuse, and really truly copying what works, that just accelerates your journey. What has been my observation through my years in Estonian government and looking at various colleagues through different entities, as well as looking at peers from other countries, was that it seems that largely everyone sort of knows what to do in terms of what should be the digital strategy, what sort of pillars to put in place, how to build or what to build for digital government. Yet the progress, the actual results differ so much from country to country. So I was always curious what makes this difference, and my hypothesis from this, my observations became that differentiating factor lies really in management and thus leadership. And this sort of led to me talking to 20 of my excellent peers from around the world that led to the book, Digital Government Excellence. And it was sort of confirmed through these interviews, these stories, and that you can find in the book that that really the best of leaders consciously do this management part well. So there are 2 or 3 things to that. First of all, if we talk about like what is digital government transformation or what is digital transformation? Digital is the tech part. That's the same everywhere. Technology is the same everywhere we face. But what difference is that how we exactly choose to use it, how we choose it to transform how we work, the transformation part. We got to manage that change. So what does it take is the quality of change management. Do we do this consciously? It's the ABCs of routine change we got to systematically do. Then digital transformation efforts are successful in any country, in any organization. For them to do systematically, I mean, that takes a quality of management. So what we see with what we can learn from front-running countries and excellent leaders is that they take a lot of care to manage their organizations well, build up teams for that carefully, build up culture, manage themselves, their own time, the routines they do daily. They're good managers. So what does it take to become successful in this digital game is to really build up proper management of digital transformation within an entity, but also for across the government in central digital teams, digital ministries, digital agencies, whatever you have them in some country. That's the most return on investment you can get into digital. If you pour money, if you pour resource and effort into building up the quality of this management, the quality of these teams, give them mandate, and then they run with it. We see this again and again from country to country, and I'm glad that also donor organizations have started to invest more into this sort of actual capacity building, actual management quality. And what is behind management quality is leadership. So, I mean, it sounds perhaps mundane to say it, but the countries that achieve the most digitally have good leadership, both politically and administratively. So when leaders lead, they really take their organizations, the countries from one place to another by how they behave themselves, by the culture they put in place, how they manage the stakeholders, how they manage the political masters, how they really, systematically learn from other countries. That's a lot what it's about. And luckily, leadership can be learned and trained and improved. Yes, you got to hire good people for that, right people for that, but fundamentally they can up their game. So again, I go back to my point before that as governments, the best we can do is really build up the digital leadership competence within every organization in our government, but even the most in the central digital teams of our governments. That's the best return on investment. Then we are sure to reap the benefits from the digital infrastructure we put in place, the service transformations, etc. Then these changes will be managed well and led well, and to the point of no return, meaning that digital reforms cannot be clawed back, but also in a way that people really will see the benefits. So investing in digital leadership, the management quality, that is the biggest differentiator these days, and that is why, for example, that's a lot what we do in Digital Nation. We support these sort of capacity building. Thanks.
And we had planned already a time for Q&A. So I will ask the participants to engage at this time with questions and answer through the session. So we have some comments already on the Q&A tool. Thank you very much. And we have also some comments here. So let's see. I'm going to start passing one to Ms. Bellamy from Gunjan Manzing. It says the UK can focus on digital products because they have already developed their DPI. Which are the building blocks for these products? What are the DPIs in UK? General question. Also, we in the Caribbean need to work together in developing these building blocks of digitalization. So he says, what role can regional institutions like OAS play in assessing countries in identifying and implementing critical DPI? So I'm going to let the first part of that question to you, which is the one specific to the UK, right? What are the DPIs in the UK? And then I respond and reply to the second part. Ms. Bellamy, any reactions to that?
Yeah, with pleasure. I think it's quite interesting. It's a really good question. I'm just going to take it back a moment. We do have products, but we had to sort of invent them. You know, they didn't exist, and we definitely haven't got all the products that we'll need for the future. During COVID, what happened was the expectations of the digital enhancements that citizens needed just transformed massively. If you were able to make it possible for people to get what they needed in their day-to-day life, they should have been able to get that from government. And I think all the fears that we had that it would be hard to get people to adopt to digital, I think some of those fears went away. I think we were much in a better situation. So I think where you find the UK is in its next phase of true digital transformation. And we've got great foundations, but we are building again. And I don't think that's going to change for the next years to come. So when we think of our future mandate, we think about the next 10 years as our digital strategy, and we think about what those products will be during that time. But we haven't cracked it fully. And I say that as someone who's incredibly impressed with what we do. So I think the way I'd tackle the question is say, you find us today in the middle of a transformational program around the need of digitals to be able to log in one way in a country that doesn't do that when people are born. So it's quite difficult. You find us at a point where we're trying to make really fantastic personalized services that are as good as anything people use in their banking experience or their consumer experience. And we have a new government and a new Secretary of State who is incredibly ambitious for what we can do in the future for the digital offer for citizens. So what I would say is that I'm sort of answering the question slightly different way, I know, but I'm trying to labour the point, but this work is never done. And I think what you need to have is a real clear direction from the top, but you also need to have people to be able to deliver it. So the UK offer now will be very different, and is very different than it was 5 years ago. So the question of whether we got the foundations right, I think, is still to play for. But going forward, I think what you see is that we've got now is a plethora of citizen-facing experiences that make it possible for citizens to get what they need from government, and there's still more to do. So although I think we're in a better place than others, we are probably in some areas, everybody's almost like always having to renew their digital strategy, so the game isn't over. Anything else you want me to build on that, Mike, from the question? Is there anything else you want me to add?
No, I think that is on point. So thank you very much for that, Ms. Bellamy. I do have questions on my own, but I'm going to refrain from doing so and let the attendees pose their questions. So for either, this is Shelley Ann Clark in Trinidad and Tobago. She asks for either Ms. Bellamy or Ms. Rahim, given your adoption of citizen-centric approaches, what are some of the challenges experienced in engaging citizens and securing their buy-in? Very important question. Not everybody wants to participate. How do we get them to participate? Perhaps we'll give the floor to Ms. Amberine first.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very important question. And I think there are absolutely challenges in ensuring that the services that we provide are meeting the needs, right, of clients and the evolving needs of users and citizens. I'd say some of the challenges would include, first of all, keeping pace with the rate of technology evolution, technology adoption. That is absolutely an important challenge that needs to be at the forefront of any sort of continuous improvement that we do for services. And when I alluded to some of the IT investments that are being made against the Government of Canada's digital ambition, that is certainly a part of it, making sure that our legacy systems and the new and procured technology, the cloud solutions that we're looking at in artificial intelligence, that we're able to keep up with the pace and the expectations, frankly, of citizens and clients. So that's one. Another challenge I would say is also meeting the clients where they're at, and having with digital services, it's great to have the online channel. We also need to keep in mind that the more traditional channels, there is still a need for traditional channels for an aging population that perhaps are not as savvy, technology savvy, as well as for persons with disabilities, which I think someone had also mentioned during the talks earlier. There are, a number of to make a service truly inclusive, as Christine had said, that you need to do the user testing. So the challenge there as well is making sure with all of the public consultations that we do is making sure that we're reaching the right groups. And that comes as well through awareness and education. Why should citizens care about this user testing that the government is doing? If they understand and see the benefit of improving the service, ultimately how it benefits them, there is an opportunity there to increase that awareness of the general population. So again, keeping the pace with technology, also like meeting clients where they're at, making sure we're meeting their needs and really getting their participation by showing the benefit and the intended outcomes. Those would be three of the challenges that I would highlight.
Thank you. Ms. Bellamy?
Yeah, I got a couple of builds and absolutely in the same areas. It's quite interesting this. I was in the US earlier this year, and somebody sort of said that I met, well, you're making this experience really well, but what about folk that just really don't want to go to digital? And absolutely, we need to make sure that the services are for everybody. But if we make the digital services really easy for people to use, the adoption for digital therefore should mean we've got more time, more money, more energy to work with citizens who don't use those channels. It sort of doesn't make it better if we make digital worse. If digital gets better and we bring that watermark up, we should be in a situation where we can really double down on citizens that don't use those channels. In the UK, it's about 15% in all our numbers that's millions of people who don't see digital as their place that they want to interact. So we need to make it possible for them to interact with government. But it does make it better if the others. The other thing, I've just sort of doubled down on this, find people where they are. We've almost gone back a little bit and decided that it is about the channels that we build and own and operate, but it is also about finding citizens where they are. And that could be on other social channels. So one thing we do know is that, many parts of our populations are using social media. We've just gone through an election in the UK, and we really wanted to make sure that all our citizens voted and made it easy for people to vote. So we did loads of work on our products to make sure you could register to vote really easily. But actually, all the work we did was finding users where they were. So we worked with Spotify, we worked with Google, we worked with Facebook to talk to citizens in their day-to-day lives, because they don't come to gov.uk unless they need to, but they do on a Saturday morning decide what to listen to on Spotify. And that link in their day life made it really easy for them to get to the service they need and register to vote really quickly. And that adoption was in its millions compared to the last time people voted in the UK. I sort of use that example to say that sometimes it isn't just about driving folk to channels that they find difficult to use. It's also making them feel the comfort of it sort of come to them in a place where they would be anyway. So I think there's work to do on to get to citizens in their daily lives.
Well, thank you. It is inspiring for both of you here. Meet the client where they are. I think that's very important in understanding. And as public institutions, and that mindset has evolved. We used to think public institutions from the perspective of making it work for us, how it works for us. And today it's just how we can actually deliver more transparent and agile services, and meeting the clients where they are, the citizens, very important in that regard. So there's another question in the Q&A tool of this chat, actually a couple of them. Very quick, because we're running out of time. Mr. Maurice McNaughton in Jamaica from the University of the West Indies is saying the following. It's interesting how public data set assets how public data assets and governance mechanisms are always represented as foundational enablers of digital transformation. But the governments of the Caribbean have largely not capitalized on data, open data policies and value opportunities in the past decade. What reason is there to be confident that we can address the deficit going forward as part of the digital transformation agenda? Tough one. Any thoughts on that, Amberine or Ms. Bellamy?
Yeah, I can take an start on this one. I think what's important is just to keep the conversation going. You know, there are I think the opening speakers did mention about how the Summit of Americas, you know, in 2018, that open data commitment was made. And there was that Inter-American, I think, open data program. So just staying plugged in to the conversation, into the various programs that are available, seeing what other countries, like Canada, for example, the Open Government Portal. I think it's just about understanding what those opportunities are, being able to have a dialogue around it, perhaps, you know, would even suggest if you have a topic for a future webinar. And I think that once that awareness is built amongst the member states and the information starts flowing, that open data would likely have some more of the attention that it deserves, frankly. So don't know if hopefully that's helpful, and that answers part of your question.
I think just to build, I think it's beautifully answered. We're doing some work in the UK and what we're calling the Digital Data Library, which is another way of thinking about data we own, we could share, we could mobilize. I think to the question that was being raised, it'd be lovely to reach out after this call and maybe have a sort of join some dots on that work and see if there's any sort of shared learning that we can get from each other. I think we're all going on the data journey sort of together. I think there are some great nations that have lent into this early. I think Denmark's a great example of that. But I think the lovely thing is we're not in competition with each other. So I think this is the moment to join. I know already we're talking to Canada. So we could share some of the learnings we're working on in the UK at the moment, happily after this call.
Thank you very much to both. Actually, I want to ask Ms. White if you have any thoughts in either of these last questions that have been set for. I know that we're very directed also, but I'm sure there's a lot of insight that can come from Trinidad based on their experience. Ms. White?
Thanks, Mike. In terms of the data, now we have had traditionally a very siloed approach to government, and data has been seen as proprietary for our government ministries and agencies. We're trying to fix that. And the implementation, first of all, of the interoperability platform is one of the ways that we are immediately laying the mechanism for the opening up and the sharing of data, but recognizing that interoperability is not simply at the technical level, it must happen at the organizational level as well. So the governance aspect of it is critical, and we're actually, as a subset of our national digital transformation strategy, also developing a data strategy for government that will be able to guide how ministries and agencies approach the sharing of data. We also have to put in a very important piece of the institutional framework, which is the Data or Information Commission, to be able to set the rules of governance and ensure that there is compliance, so that there's responsible use of data, which we recognize as an asset, but we also have to balance it with the protection of citizen data where they are private or sensitive data sets that are involved in this activity.
Thank you for your insight, Ms. White. And I want to acknowledge the fact that we have completed our time, and therefore we would like to close the session with a few disclaimers. The first one, the videos that we received, the responses that we received from Estonia, from the Estonia's case, will be added on to the report of course, very insightful. That's one of the things. And secondly, I know perhaps some of the comments and questions were not responded fully or completely in the ones that were sought on the Q&A. We're also going to reply to those ones to make sure that they're part of the report, the final report, and so all registered participants will have access to it. With those two disclaimers, I want to thank the authorities and panelists presented, of course, Ambassador Francis, for your support and accompanying us here during the length of the session. It shows the commitment, your commitment, the commitment of the Permanent Council you represent, of course, and the member states of the OAS. We thank you for that. And of course, we continue this conversation. We will continue this conversation to strengthen digital transformation in the Caribbean. But I also want to thank the panelists, our speakers, Ms. Denyse White from Trinidad and Tobago, Christine Bellamy from the UK, and Ambereen Jamal Rahim from Canada. Of course, thank you, and Sim Sikut, giving us the case of Estonia, of course, to María Fernanda, Trigo, and Ambassador Lambert as well from the OAS, and all the team that has been behind this. But I want to just closing saying this. There's definitely, or I found definitely a line, a narrative between the different, well, among different presentations, mandates, clear mandates, the need to institutionalize, quote unquote, digital transformation properly, including working on regulation, working on how institutions can work and share better. Very important how we can understand data, not only as data as it is, or data sets, but actually as a main component to make things work within government and outside government, and think and how data can be useful also to guide decisions. Very, very, very important, and how that can connect, especially the quality of data, to the use or taking advantage of new technologies as well. But there are other issues that were present here. The importance of digital security as enabler of all this digital transformation, very important. Connectivity was another of the issues that was present and very vivid. And one very final thought as this concludes, putting the citizen in the center, I think, was also key of the narrative, not only for the delivery, but also to make sure that the citizen participates of the process of thinking digital transformation, digital services as well, and thinking that also they can take advantage of the data and the services and all that the digital transformation has to offer. I want to thank you all. In doing so, I want to have you there as you are. We want to take a picture of the participants at this time, of the speakers at this time, to make sure that we let our social media knew we were discussing about strengthening digital transformation in the Caribbean. So I ask you to please turn your cameras on, those ones who are connected as speakers and can do it. I know we're past the time, so we can take that picture, and I want to ask our team behind the scenes to help us capturing this moment. Thank you.
Well, the picture is taken. I just want to also give thanks to Mike for the conduction and being the engine of these initiatives. And of course, Ambassador Francis, we will count with your support to keep doing this kind of initiatives for the Caribbean region. We know we have an ally with you, so we keep forward, as well as with Trinidad and Tobago, and the delegation who has also helped us to move on this initiative. Thank you all.
Smile. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.